Good morning. We're going to start, and just want to say that our videos include everything, so they include our discussion at the end. So if for some reason there's something that you want to talk about and it's not really suited towards a video, I'm always happy to hang around. And I would say it might be something along the lines of specific for your child. So like, we don't need that to be something that absolutely everybody hears. Good morning. How are you? So I hope everybody had a wonderful New Year's. Today is a little bit of a presentation trying to make it a bit more timely to some things that are going on. And just out of curiosity, how many people have had their child do like a really interesting summer program? Or do something interesting over the summer at all? Yeah. I'm just curious, what are some of the examples? Yeah. Camp, definitely. That's a big one.
European team.
European. How long did that last?
28 days maybe.
Wow. Was there an element of like service with it, or was it mostly like language, immersion, that kind of thing?
Really touring museums, like sites.
Really? Amazing.
I'm a little jealous.
I know. How could we be on that tour? Hi, good morning. Good morning. Yeah.
We did a Hawaii service tour where they worked with sea turtles.
That's a good one. These all are sounding really good. Okay, so.
And that was like 11 or 12 days? It was a short one.
11 or 12. And then in between what years in high school, or was it even
Last
before
year,
that?
between sophomore and junior year.
Between sophomore and junior year, okay.
That was the general age. Like, it was not going into 10th and going into 11th was the general age on his trip.
Anybody else done anything interesting? Good morning. Working. We always forget about working. So the reason why we wanted to talk about this today is that we often will get students reaching out to us and parents reaching out to us. A lot of times it's a student is coming in because they said, my parent says I need to come talk with you about this. And why I think it's a really good thing to talk about is because who a student is outside of their academic life is represented when they apply to college. And sometimes students don't have a lot of opportunity during the regular school year to show their interest or show their interest in a particular topic, maybe something that we don't have at Byron House. For example, are you here for the discussion group? This is us. I'll put up the sign next time. Come on in. So for example, we don't have any courses that deal with artificial intelligence. And so sometimes we get students who will come in and they'll say, this is an area of interest of mine, what can I do? How can I make use of this summer? That's something that I'm really interested in. Or we get a student who's like, I'm really busy during the school year. I'm having a hard time showing who I am, creating myself as a multi-dimensional person outside of my academic life. What can I do? I think a summer program or travel, volunteer, whatever it is, I think that can be an ideal time for a student to pick up a course. Any child ever taken a course over the summer? No. What's that?
Driver's ed.
Yes. It could be something local, but it also could be something at a college or university. So what I'm going to show you today is something that we've compiled over time, and the way it's split up, it's by a college or university. Okay, so sometimes we get students who come in and are like, I'm going to go to Cornell. I'm going to go to Cornell this summer, and I don't care what course I take, I just want the experience of being at like a Cornell. Fine. We can go to Cornell directly, and we can see the kind of programs that they have there. But I would say more often than not, a student will come in and they'll say something like, I want to build a portfolio for architecture. Where would I do that? How would I do that? So we have it also split up by subject. So this, what I'm showing you here is on, oh, I forgot to close that. I had one job, is on our advanced website. Okay, I've talked about this website probably too many times at this point, so I'm not going to show you, but it is on our guidance webpage. But it's on the advanced website, and then I just came down here to the pre-college and summer programs. It has a table of contents, so it starts with colleges that have summer programs. Okay. So again, like if you said I want to stay close to home, maybe even commute to Columbia, okay, fine. If you want to go away, maybe you want to go down to Duke, or if you know something very specific about a specific college that your child would like to have to be on that campus, this is how you could search. Okay. If you come down here, it's categorized by just different topics. For example, Middlebury. Middlebury is known for their language immersion programs. So sometimes we'll get students who are like, I really want to pick up a second language. We would have them go to Middlebury. Okay. Or, let's see. There's also topics like internships. What are different places that I can get an internship? Or I really want to do community service. Okay. So, for example, there was one, I think it was Brown. Takes you right to pre-college. Takes you right to the link. And I clicked on one of them to do the application, and I believe the deadline is today. I was going to tell you this is not too early to be thinking about it, but I happened to pull this one up and I was like, it really isn't too early. We missed it completely. So listen, something like Brown is going to have a pretty competitive and early timeline. It's not that all colleges and universities, if you want to go that route, have this kind of a timeline. But it is definitely not too early to start these conversations with your child about what they're doing over the summer, making their summer meaningful. And that does not mean that they have to give up camp. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't work. Okay, because working is a very, very, very viable and sometimes underrepresented or overlooked opportunity for our students. But if your child is looking to do something different, this is definitely a place to come, to look, but also to involve your child's counselor in this conversation, because we can certainly help with that. Is there anything you want to see on here? Anything, any questions about it?
Do they, does enrolling in one of these programs help with the kid? If it's like, is it in their interest, best interest, if they're EDing to a school, like taking something at that school, would it help them? Or?
I think the general consensus is saying that the answer to that is no. I will say where I have seen it be helpful. I had a student one year, good morning, who took a course at the University of Pennsylvania in nutrition, and one of the professors felt so strongly about the student's participation in the class that he actually rewrote a part of his curriculum and syllabus because of some information that the student did some research on, and he wrote the student a letter of recommendation. And that student ended up wanting to go to University of Pennsylvania and had this amazing letter of recommendation from a professor. It helped, she got in. That's a story of one, right? But you could see where that would be helpful, and that does happen. Like oftentimes our students will get a letter of recommendation possibly from somebody that they took a college level course. And to have somebody who teaches at the college level writing a recommendation for your child, whether or not they end up going to that school or using that recommendation to just apply to colleges, that's pretty powerful. And it's also, if I remember the letter correctly, talked about the different skills that a college student would need to have to be successful, and really was very specific about how that student already had already mastered that. And I thought that was powerful.
Let me know if this takes us too far off course, but similar to this, sometimes our children have some space in their schedule. Where an elective slot might be, maybe they can't find an elective that sort of fits their interest or their schedule. And I understand they can take some sort of pre-college type classes, so I'm still learning about that, but is this a similar resource? Could they go to these links, or is this just summer?
This would be more summer. I think this is more focused on summer, but the counselor could certainly help a student if they're looking to take like a course kind of like at the same time, like a course outside of school during the school year. We can help a student try to find that. Sometimes we know certain colleges that allow a high school student to take college level courses, because not all colleges will allow that. For example, WCC, you have to be, I think, between your junior and senior year of high school in order for them to allow you. But we could help with that, but that's not necessarily. What you might be able to do is click on this information and then navigate the bar to something else, but yeah, it's more focused on summer. Anything else with this? Again, I think it's really helpful for our students who are struggling to find the time to make themselves a multi-dimensional student and an applicant at the college level. And for a student to say, I'm really passionate about a particular subject and I'm going to dedicate 2 weeks of my life over the summer towards something that I really, really am passionate about that I can't seem to fit in during my school year. I think this could be, we don't want to add more stress to students. We don't want to add more stuff on their plate. We want summer to be a time to relax and rejuvenate and regenerate. However, something like this might actually work out and not be too time consuming for your child.
Have the resources on this link been vetted by the guidance department? I mean, is it basically Byram students have gone there, they've had a positive experience?
No, not it's all encompassing. So we could certainly tell you, if we've had a negative experience somewhere or if we've had a particular positive, but that would involve like a conversation with the counselor. This is it's not an exhaustive list, but it's more like this time of year, the counselors and I get probably 5 emails a day. Oh, recommend students for the WPI summer program. We just put it on here. So we're funneling all that. Instead of just trashing that, we're putting it all on here. And this is updated by one of our counselors.
And do you find, even if they don't, like you said, they're not necessarily vetted, so we don't always know the outcome, but at the very least, if it's the child's interest, does it help with the essays and the interviews going forward? Like, oh, why did you do this? And
yeah.
So even, it doesn't sound like there's a negative if the child's invested in it.
Right. I would say this child just needs to be want to really do it more than you want them to do it. So I think that's, because they are giving up time over their summer. Some of this stuff is virtual. So they could be doing it from home, but attending classes. I'm not sure that they're going to get as enriching an experience as if they were, physically somewhere. But these run from 1 week up to almost the whole summer. So if your child is I really only want a little bit of time, I only want to do this for a little bit, you just have to figure that out.
Good morning, Farm Hill. It is Wednesday, January 18th, and it is day 3. Please stand and remove your hat for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Happy birthday, Kia Bird. And next Marketing and Media Club meeting will be held tomorrow, January 19th at 2:30 p.m. in the College and Career Center. New members are always welcome, and there will be snacks. The Government and Politics Club will be meeting today from 2:30 to 3:30 in room 100A. Refreshments, of course. Old and new members are welcome. Hey seniors, the deadline to select your pose/portrait for this year's yearbook on the Irvin Simon portal is Friday, January 27th. Otherwise, our editorial staff will select the image. Please contact Mrs. Vernola with any questions. It's pink during time. Bonneville's varsity hockey team will lace up their skates to benefit the American Cancer Society in making strides against breast cancer on Friday, January 20th at 6:15 p.m. at the Brewster Ice Arena. You can help them make Pink the Rink a huge success. Bring your appetites and your money to the cafeteria every day this week. The treats will not disappoint. You can also purchase a Pink the Rink sweatshirt so you're ready to pink out when you come to the game. Have a great day and go Bobcats.
They are the highlight of our morning at the very least. But, okay, so if no other questions about summer, I'm going to move over. This is somewhat related to some assessments that we have in Naviance. And for those of you that are not familiar with Naviance, it is our college, career, and life readiness platform. Which means what? Which means it's kind of an all-encompassing platform that we use as counselors, but also that we have our students create an account with and log on to beginning in 8th grade. And we do, it can do so many things. It could help students research careers. It could help them figure out their learning style and how to best learn and what skills they have. And then in high school, it's a way that we have students build a resume, okay? It's also an opportunity for our students to start cataloging and putting together a list of colleges that they are interested in. And ultimately, it is the way that our seniors request high school transcripts and they request letters of recommendation from their teachers. All of that is sent through the Naviance platform. Okay? So Naviance has a lot of different aspects to it. And one of the things that I think is maybe overlooked and needs a little bit more attention are these assessments that are in here for every student to take. Okay? So I was going to go through each of the assessments, and I think the bottom line, if I was to summarize everything, is almost all of them will generate a list of careers that a student is, kind of more aligned with. So if your child has no idea what they want to do, and I would say that that's the majority of our students, some of these assessments, might really help them start to hone in on what their skills are, what their interests are, what their intelligence is, what comes kind of naturally for them, and then a lot of these assessments couple that with potentially some careers. So it's a starting point for your child, and we've already had our students take the AchieveWorks personality profile, and this one is about 15 minutes, and it basically helps them come up with what are my strengths? Other part is they said, what are my challenges? What are my challenges of being in a relationship? What are my challenges in a group setting? What might be my challenge learning in a particular class? And that's where I think this is really helpful. But then it also links to different careers that your child, because of their personality, might be better suited to. Again, that's only 15 minutes. It's not a lot of time. All of your children should have already done that. It's in their Naviance account. If you want to review it with your child, you can. If the child said, I don't think this represents me very well, they can start over. They can take it again. We all change. Okay, so we had some of our senior mentors this year when we were in the classes. We were asking them about their results, and they said they went back and read it, and they feel like they're so different now. So they want to take it again. So it's been 4 years during, during a developmental time for your child. They change.
When do they take it?
They take it depending on your child's year in high school. They either took it in 8th grade or 9th grade. So to go through this first one, this Achieve Work Intelligences, this is about 15 minutes. It asks questions like, I can easily picture complex objects and view them in my mind. And basically what it comes out with, strengths, intelligences, and careers, and it focuses a little bit on students' emotional intelligence, okay? And that one kind of comes out in this one. Okay. The productivity and learning, this is more about study practices based on your mindset. If I have to learn something, I'd rather talk with someone to learn it, like asking questions along those lines. And what they come up with from this one is, what kind of an environment is best suited for my learning? Some of our students need busy hustle and bustle. They need to kind of be in the center of action. Other students need to be more secluded. Some students need to be listening to music. And this really teases that out. This one is about 20 minutes. We talked about the Achieve Works personality, which we do. The skills, this is longer. This is about 70 questions, and we focus on things like your creativity, your conscientiousness, critical thinking, and then it connects students to careers that are well suited to their skills. Okay, so this one's a bit longer. The career cluster finder is definitely really focused in on careers, only 20 minutes. Things like, do you like to read? Do you like to follow blueprints and instructions? And it definitely comes up with a list of careers. The interest profile, I don't know if you all know the Holland interest. That was a thing back in like the 80s and 90s. They produce codes. And then the questions would be like, do you like taking care of children at like daycare? Be questions along those lines. Okay, and then it links them not only to careers, but also things like starting salary. And then Strengths Explorer, it has 10 talent themes, and it identifies the student's 3 strongest emerging talents. And then it works a student through how to capitalize on their success. One of the questions was like, friends tell me about their problems. How do I answer that? Often, mostly, or never. Okay. And that one is about 18 questions right here. So all of this is under self-discovery, so your student can find it pretty easily. All these assessments are there. They don't have to take them. It's certainly not our goal. But for a student who is struggling, or we're having academic advising meetings and our students are like, I really have no idea what I want to study in college, or I don't know a particular career that I'm suited for, sometimes we will work with them to try to take one of these and have them come back and then maybe have a conversation along those lines. But I think this is really just investigative. It's self-discovery for a student. Not all of your children want to do this. I think you know that better than I do. Some are more open to it, and I think what is good is that when they do take it, they realize that it's pretty spot on. You never take some of those like surveys and you're like, oh, that is me to a T. I think these are pretty good. Students really like, when they do take one, they think that it's pretty accurate. So this might be a place to start. Any questions about these?
So, correct me if I'm wrong, it's the seniors who have access to this, but you said 8th graders, 9th graders?
No, all of our students from 8th grade through senior have an account. Okay. And they can sign into Naviance just the regular way that they sign into their email, their Gmail, logs them into Naviance.
And they can take tests as many times and take them as much.
They can just do like retake. You just press retake. Yeah. Questions? Anybody's child ever taken one of them? Never said anything about it. Was that impressionable? Great. Yeah, so all of our ninth graders took it in, actually all of our current ninth graders took it in 8th grade. Our 10th graders took it in 8th grade, and then our 11th and 12th graders did it in 9th grade. So this year, Ms. Hunt and I, in September, we went into the mentor classes. We had students log in to Naviance. We had them pull up their assessment from last year and read through it. They can share that with you. The printout in the report is probably 10 pages long. It's significant. It's not just like a little quick little thing. And it really goes into, like I said, things like blind spots, things that you need to be just self-aware of, just some things that are not as well developed for you yet, and really identifies that. But it also identifies things that really come naturally to you and things that you can really capitalize on.
So you're saying we took it in 9th grade, right?
So if your child is in 9th or 10th grade, they did it in 8th grade.
Okay.
If your child's in 11th or 12th grade, they did it in 9th grade.
9th grade, okay.
We've just started to move it to 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a 10th grader, so I don't really know the process yet.
Yes.
But I'm hearing that do you have to declare a major to apply to schools or something like that, or it can just be kind of general, or
Right.
you don't really need to know what you want to do in order to apply to colleges still?
You don't need to know what, you don't need to declare a major. You can apply as undecided or something along those lines. Where I think it's helpful for a student to start having an idea about that is if the counselor can be working with the student and recommending colleges that might support their future interests, then I think it's important for a student to kind of know. For example, not all colleges and universities have a school of engineering, and not all colleges and universities have a business school. So if a student is leaning in that direction and kind of has some idea that they want to go in that direction, or a school of nursing, then the counselor can be like, listen, you might want to look at these schools because they have that, but also if you change your mind, it's also a really good school. So that's where I think it's really helpful.
What is the college tab on this?
The college tab, okay, yeah. So,
Can I just add one thing to the majors thing?
Yeah.
Also, some schools and programs are direct admit, and they could be closed majors. So if it's something that you're interested in, you
Yes.
may or may not be able to change your mind after the fact. It might be harder to change your major. I feel like when we went to this Syracuse,
right.
or I could be wrong, but anyway, we went to visit one school and someone asked, how easy is it to change your major, and they said it's actually pretty hard.
Pretty hard. Syracuse, yeah, what is it, the new school. For communications, you can't go to Syracuse University as a psychology major and then expect to get into the communications school. That's just not happening at that school. So some programs in particular schools are very difficult to get into. So you kind of need to know that.
Could I ask a question about your opinion on the business school? So if my son's looking to do a business school, but some of the business programs are really hard to get into, do you recommend him going in for the schools that are more difficult as undecided and then transferring to business, or should he just be applying to those business schools and not going as undecided?
Both. I think we need to tackle that in a bunch of different ways, but business is one of those programs where it's not necessarily easy to switch into the program.
Mm-hmm.
So for some, you definitely have to do direct admit and see if you get in, and then for other schools you could. But that's a question. That's why it's so important to go and visit colleges, because to ask those kind of questions is really important. And then once you see all these colleges and have a better sense of that, then we can work on a case-by-case basis through each college and say, okay, this college, we have to apply direct admit. This college, you might be able to get in your sophomore year with a 3.9 GPA. So this one, maybe it's better for us to just have you get into the college during through undecided,
and then kind of like backdoor into business school.
Okay.
But it literally is dependent on each school. Would you agree with that? Yeah, those of you that have gone through it.
Some schools you have to apply to a school.
Yes.
You have no, you have to pick a.
You have to pick.
Right.
It could be liberal arts though. Oftentimes they'll have, just general studies or liberal arts for a student who's truly undecided.
And some schools, like I know the University of Richmond, you go in liberal arts and then you apply to their business school, I believe, after your freshman year.
After freshman year.
Okay.
They
So-
want to see if you're going to be a student first.
Right.
Actually, okay.
So, it really depends.
Right. Yeah, Emory was the same. You don't declare till the end of your sophomore year and you don't go into the business
Until the
school
end of
is what it was
sophomore.
saying. I mean, you can know what you want to study, but.
Right. They don't let you. Yeah. So I clicked on the tab for colleges, and you can see all the different things on here.
It'll be fun.
There's so much here. Basically, you can do like advanced college searches. Like you could say, I want schools in the Northeast with less than 5,000 students that has linguistics as a major. Fine. Gonna give you a whole list. Okay. So you can really be very granular in this. You can also do very, open-ended. But there's a lot of search options here. There's a college match option, which actually, once a student has SAT, ACT, or PSAT scores and a GPA in here, when you give it some parameters, it will match up some colleges and universities for a student. A scattergram is what most students and parents like about this. What this does is it looks at a particular college, and it looks at the last 5 years of Byram Hill's data on that particular college, and the students' information, their GPA, SAT, and ACT scores are indicated in there, and a student can see kind of where they fall, okay, among students who were accepted, among students who were denied.
Are we using our students' login to get in, or do our parents have their
You
own?
go in as your student.
We go in as the student, okay.
The college match, I have a question about that.
Yep.
So I understand with the ACT and SAT scores, that when the colleges are listing their average ACT and SAT scores, they're totally out of whack because a huge number of kids are not submitting scores.
Right, right.
What I'm not understanding is the GPA, because I'm seeing schools that are not tier 1 schools,
Right,
saying that they have like 4.4 average GPAs.
right, right.
How is that happening? Like,
Yeah.
is it a?
That's why the scattergram, I think, is the best way to go, because basically what it's saying is, for this school, this is what a Byram Hills GPA will get you. This is what a Byram Hills student, how they can do at a particular college. Because if you use the national data, right, how do you break down our 4.6 to, be in comparison with another school's 4.0 and everything else?
So should we just be ignoring that?
Listen, I wouldn't say ignore it. It's a guide. I mean, if your child is way off from what they're reporting, it's probably not a school that they can apply to. But the
Are there really
scattergram is
that
better.
many kids that are getting like an A+?
don't think so.
Those schools
Yes, they do
They
recalculate.
recalculate.
Okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah, yes.
Trying to get at.
A lot
Okay.
of colleges do.
Okay.
They take our GPA, they take a student's GPA, they recalculate it, but some don't. Like our smaller colleges and universities probably don't do that, but our larger ones, our universities probably recalculate.
Besides, our school has an unweighted GPA, and
Yes.
many schools have weighted GPA. So then you apply, there is an automatic calculator which transforms and recalculates our GPA to their
Right.
system if it's
Okay.
different, if it's rated.
I could show you. See. Oh. So I just pulled up University of Alabama because I knew that there would be a good number of students who've applied here. So this is the scattergram. It will tell you things like the deadline, application fee, their acceptance rate, important policies. It's telling you very specific data about Byram Hills. who's applied, who's been accepted, okay, per year.
What
Why are
accounts
we
for the
missing
missing years? I'm
years?
just curious.
What's that?
What account, there's like missing years, so it goes from
Okay.
20
So
to
the
current.
reason why, if you see a missing year, is that there's not enough data points for us to be able to show it. So for example, if we had under 3 students in a given year apply to that school, we do not show it. Okay, because you could figure out who that student is, and so for privacy issues, we don't show it. Okay, so if you ever see that, it's not that it's a glitch in our system, it's because we're protecting the
Because we could
privacy
sit
of
there
our
and go, oh,
students.
that's so-and-so.
Correct. And believe me, that happens. That happens. Okay, this is the scattergram though that I think tends to be really helpful. Okay. This happens to be using ACT scores, but you can see we've had a lot of accepted students, so I picked a good school. But you can actually click on these dots and see the actual ACT and GPA, and this is Byram Hill specific, so you don't have to worry about, am I using the right GPA? Okay, this is an unweighted GPA from a Byram Hill student. Okay, so you can kind of get a sense if where your child is. If your child, has a 30 on the ACT and a 4.0, I'm going to be pretty certain that your child is obviously going to get in here, but they're probably going to get a scholarship. And your child, once they start to have these data points, these ACT, SAT, and GPAs, they can start to see, okay, where am I falling in this mix?
It'll show you too, right? Because the U, which isn't on this, because
Yes.
obviously this isn't a.
It's a demo, yeah, but your child has like a circle that represents them, and so you can kind of see where they fall on here.
So these are dots are all the points of the students who were accepted by the school.
No, they would have denied too. They would have.
It's a bad example.
We're not always green.
It's a good example, but it's actually a bad example.
Go to Cornell or.
Yeah, no.
That's a good
Let's go
one.
to Penn.
No, then you'll see too much red. You need something with a
Yeah.
balance.
It would be interesting to see the real
Binghamton, Cornell.
scatter plot.
Let's see, where is Cornell? Let me see. Okay. 415 applications.
There you go.
And you can toggle between, let's just say your child only took an SAT score. You could switch between both.
Turn off the dots.
And where are the ones where they don't submit the SAT, or these ones that required the submission of the SAT, ACT?
It's a good point. If you hover over some of them and they just have a GPA, that would be a test optional student. Yeah. Probably at a school like Cornell, we don't have too many test optional
Right.
students, but in a different college, that might be the case.
Do you feel like if your child doesn't have, if they don't do well on the ACT or SAT, then it's better for them to not share it and just go off of their GPA? Or do they just share it just to show it and then hopefully their GPA, which is better, will.
Right. It's more on a case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So, for example, when your child is meeting with their counselor and they formalize their list of colleges that they're going to apply to, probably the counselor is going to go case by case through every single school and say, with this one, I actually think you should submit your ACT or SAT scores because you're falling within a range where they're typically accepted. This is a school where let's maybe go test optional. That's probably your best bet.
Okay.
So that's one of the reasons, and this is really kind of nuanced, but I would never report my ACTs or SATs on my common application. If you report them under common application, they're going to all schools regardless.
Oh, okay.
So if you choose the option that says I am going to send you my SAT and ACT scores if I want them, then we can pick and choose what colleges receive them. Because even if you select test optional for a particular college, but you've listed it on your common application, they're still going to see it. And you can't kind of retract that. So these are all the things, you know, to be talking through with your counselor. There's definitely ways that I think our students can maximize their opportunities at particular schools. And one of the things that we do know is that our students who do submit scores, okay, do slightly better than our students who don't. However, I think our students, given the rigor of the courses that they are in at Byram Hills, if they have a really good GPA and their SAT or ACT scores are not necessarily aligned, they often do really well at test optional schools as well, because you know, I think the colleges just know that Byram Hills, they are really learning, that the grades are not just given to them, and they work very hard to get the GPA and take the courses that they're in.
Is there a filter within Naviance that you could see schools that are test optional? Can you filter it that way?
There is a filter, I think, in the advanced search, but the best place, and it is on our advanced website, is, it's called fairtest.org.
Fairtest?
Yep, FAIRTEST.org, and it lists all colleges that have a test optional policy.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any schools that require SAT and ACT?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And more so, I would say, there are programs within schools which are absolutely, where they absolutely require. Nursing is one, typically engineering, any of like the professional programs, physician's assistants and all that.
Okay, so then you declare a major basically in the very beginning, right?
Right.
Is GPA just the 4 core classes plus a language possibly?
It's everything with the exception of PE.
Really?
Yeah.
But
colleges might break it down. Colleges might say, we don't care about your electives, we don't care about health, we don't care about any, we're just gonna take your 5 core courses, and they might reconfigure your GPA, but we report everything with the exception of, we report everything, but the GPA does not include PE.
So is rigor more important, or is doing well in other classes to get your GPA up?
That is the $24 million question, right? And there's no easy answer to that. And you know, the not so nice answer to that is we need both. We need the good grades and the rigor, right? But I think it's on a case-by-case basis. For some students, they definitely need to push themselves. They need to show that because Byram Hills has a lot of rigor, if you have not dipped your toe into some sort of rigor in some aspect of your schedule, I think we need to do that. Does it have to be in every single subject? No. Another thing is if you're getting, you know, maybe a D or a C plus in a class, maybe we would say, and there is like a lower level, maybe that's an opportunity for us to say, listen, the rigor isn't as important here as it is for you to do really well in a class, because we don't want your overall GPA affected. So I think it's really on a case-by-case basis. It's a discussion about what is right for your child. But I think if your child is looking at the most competitive colleges and universities, they certainly need to be in some of the most rigorous courses that we have here.
So when the kids go in and they're making their lists of the schools they're planning to apply to, they get notifications at the top, you know, so-and-so university wants to connect with you.
Yes.
Now, is that gonna clog up their school email? Like, what does that mean exactly? Because, like, when you register for a tour or whatever, you get 100 emails a day.
Anyway, yeah.
Anyway, do you need to do both? Like,
I think that what you talked about, connecting through Naviance, is for students who maybe don't get to go to colleges and universities to tour. And this might be really the only way that they're having conversations with colleges and universities. It's not super important for a student to allow that or connect with them. And if they say, no, I don't want to, it's not like they're, you know, it's not bad. It's just that they have other means to be connecting with a college or university. But if it is one that they don't mind receiving stuff in, but it might clog up their emails. They might get a lot.
So given the rigor, and you're saying you can drop down, when is that decision made to drop down, like in the year? Is it planned next year?
Right, right. So So we have some time kind of built into the schedule. So for example, students need to drop a course by the end of September. So hopefully in September we're having those discussions. If it's an AP, a student has until the end of the first quarter to drop an AP. We want to give a student who's choosing to challenge themselves some time to figure that out, and that doesn't always get teased out in the first few weeks of school. And dropping a level, as you do know, if it is within those windows and not after those windows, it doesn't carry over with the student. So in other words, it's not seen on the transcript that a student started in one level and had to switch to another. It's only if we go past that. That's why it's really important to be in touch with your child's teacher, for your child to be in touch with their teacher. How am I doing? Are you seeing signs that I'm going to be successful in this class? What do I need to do? Involving a counselor in those discussions where they can be seeking that feedback as much as possible.
How often are there schedule issues when you try to do that?
Often.
Right, so, because it sounds easy, but
it's not like there's just like the right class at the right time.
Yeah. So.
I think even more so than that is that students, they get very attached to their schedule. They start to really get into a groove. It's predictable. They know they know that they like it, and they know they feel comfortable in their classes. And when you tell them, listen, I can make that change, but now I'm going to affect science and math and, going back a few years, and you're going to have a different lunch period, forget it. They're like, I'll stick it out, I want to stay. And you can understand that. So we really try to not have those conversations or have those discussions last, into the fall. We try to make sure if a student isn't placed correctly, that's kind of, we figure that out earlier rather than later.
Regarding the 12th grade transcript, is it where you can take classes because the grades don't get seen, or how does 12th grade play into the college process?
So, I think kind of what you're referring to is students' GPA that they apply to college is determined after their junior year. So we don't recalculate a GPA after the first quarter, after the second quarter of senior year. So, for example, if a student maybe is struggling and with their courses in senior year, that will be seen by a college because we might have to send their first quarter report card or their mid-year grades, but the GPA is not going to change. Okay, so that's just something to consider. So the final GPA is then calculated at the end of their senior year, and then we send that off to college, that is the one college that the student is attending. It could be, we've had situations where students dropped significantly, and the colleges have reached out to the student and have said, these are not the grades that we were expecting, that we admitted you based off of, and something's really changed. And it's kind of like one of those letters that you never want to get, and sometimes they have like double secret probation, but not really. But they might make a student come in over the summer and take a course with them, or they're starting the year on some sort of academic probation. We've certainly had that, and we have had the rare case where a college will rescind their decision, and that's not a place that your child ever wants to be in. And believe me, we are having conversations with our seniors who we know are falling into that category, and we're really working with them and trying to get out ahead of that. But senior year is important, those grades are seen, but the GPA doesn't change for a student for college purposes in their senior year.
Do colleges look at freshman year grades the same way they do other grades? I've heard that they don't, but I don't know if that's a fact.
Most colleges will say your whole transcript is taken into consideration. Okay. I would say where it's a benefit is that if your student started off a little bit rocky, they just really want to see improvement and not the other way. So that's an opportunity for your child to show growth, show that they've learned about themselves and everything else. But certainly it's more the progression of the student, or what courses did your child end up taking over the course of high school.
So how do you feel like, because the junior class was really affected by COVID because they were freshmen coming in. So how do you think that's going to play when now they're looking at, like, if you're taking, freshman, sophomore, and junior year, and freshman year, especially first semester, first quarter wasn't great because it was COVID and they were home
right.
and, you know, do they have sympathy for that? Are they taking into consideration? Is it not? Is it for
Yes,
school?
I mean, I think the good thing is that, you know, this is universal. It's, you know, all students were kind of falling into this, but I think colleges are definitely taking a different look. I think one thing that has come out of the pandemic is that colleges are realizing that they need to rely on other things outside of the transcript to make a decision about who is going to be successful at their child's, you know, at their institution. And they're looking at letters of recommendation a bit more than they had in the past. The counselor recommendation, what is the student writing about in their essays? Their extracurriculars, and it doesn't have to be really involved, but what did a child make an effort to do? Was the child resourceful in a year when there really wasn't much open and available for them? Did they take some sort of initiative to do something different? So I think that's how they're kind of compensating for maybe a lack of skill growth, whatever, and that was affected by the pandemic. We kind of got off on a college slant, and I'm sure you're all okay with that. But is there anything else on Naviance that you'd like to see, or on the advanced website?
Scroll down just so we can see the three at the bottom. Just
Yeah.
interesting to look at the data points, but it's right there. Yeah.
What everything is, the legend. Yeah. Yeah. And some of this information, just trying to think of where it might be like a little confusing, is sometimes a student who's applied early decision somewhere and then they withdrew their application is represented on here, and it might at times be represented as a deny, but it really wasn't. It was that there was a withdrawal of the application. So this is something that a scattergram, if you're sitting home alone at night looking at it by yourself, it's probably not a good thing. It is something to use as a reference, but then to be sitting in your child's in their counselor's office with them for a meeting and going through this together, because it's that nuance, it's that other information that we can add to this that I think will give you as parents a more informed representation, or more informed, you know, information about a particular college.
And using Naviance, how you utilize looking where previous Byram Hill students, that's more to see where you fit, but where's the relationship with the district and these schools? Does that matter tremendously because relationships that you have with schools?
Sure. I think the more a college or university knows Byram Hills, the better. So, for example, it's not necessarily that, you know, Greg Carollo, you know, knows Brown University so well and he's got an in. If anybody says that that's the case, it's not the case. It's not really the way it works. But I think what it is, and it's why we place such a high priority, is that every single one of these colleges and universities that comes to see us, a counselor physically sits with them for the entirety of the meeting. And they usually start off with talking to the admissions counselor about what's new at Byram Hills. We certainly have been talking about our entrepreneurship program, startup. We want them to know about that. We want them to know about any changes, maybe how we handled COVID and what they could expect to see on a transcript, so that each college understands Byram Hills and they understand when they're looking at a transcript what it is that they're seeing. And so that's where I think that is really important. We also have an opportunity, and this district is absolutely amazing for granting this and making this a priority, is that every one of our counselors goes out and visits colleges for about 5 days in a school year. So they are physically on the college campuses, talking with the representatives there, seeing the students who go there, and really what that translates to, you know, for you is when your child is looking, it's, you know, a counselor is able to say, yes, I could see where this would be a great school for you. I think you'd really fit in there. There are a lot of students like you. I think you might really like this. And to have that to go off of in the college process is amazing, because most high school counselors are not able to see as many schools as this district makes it a priority for our counselors to see. And hopefully, I don't know if any of you read The Advisor, but when I do a featured college this year, I'm doing featured college, only colleges that our counselors have been to, and they kind of made their own infographic. So, okay, Emory University says this, but this is what we saw when we were on the campus of Emory University. And I actually am putting the name of the counselor so that if you had any particular questions, that counselor was recently at that school, and even if it's not your child's counselor, you should feel comfortable reaching out to that counselor and asking that information.
Do you organize any kind of help session for seniors or maybe juniors to work on the Common App? Because I know and heard from many people, grown-ups and applicants, that it's kind of very difficult to fill out some of the parts and confusing.
So we have for our seniors, so the Common Application becomes available for a senior on August 1st. So it's your senior year, it's the summer you're starting. If you wanted to get started on your Common Application, you can start that on August 1st. On August 1st, I will send out a tutorial on how to start your Common Application. And then in September, we start what's called Application Clinic. An Application Clinic runs 2 to 3 times a week during lunch. And it is a place where a student can go and have their specific questions kind of like, they're not specific, they're more like, how do I fill out this portion of the application? And it would be the same for anybody who went in there. It's kind of like the general stuff. The specific about like, what activities should I personally prioritize in my application? That's more something that a student should do with their counselor.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, but the general stuff is handled in Application Clinic.
Would you guys ever do like just like the general like introductory to the Common App, like maybe in the morning during the office hours, the kids don't have to miss lunch, because that would be hard for kids just not to
It's
miss
the
lunch.
most important subject.
Right. We would
not
typically do it during office hours, and then we got, well, first of all, it's hard to believe, but none of your children wanted to come in at 7:45. So we were doing it last year. We offered it at 7:45, and we also offered it at lunch. And almost nobody came during the morning. But certainly, you know, we're here. We'd love to do that. If students want that, by all means, we could do it at 7:45 as well.
Just looking for an excuse.
They want more than they want it more like, you know, let me eat my lunch the first half, and then I'll come for 20 minutes, and we're fine with that. But if we're finding that, we'll certainly put up some times in the morning.
They only had 20 minutes for lunch.
It feels like forever.
Right.
I know a few of you had questions about your students that I can maybe answer on a more personal one-to-one, and I'm happy to stay and do that. But if there are, I did want to mention this, just to close it out. We have on March 7th, which is our last guidance discussion group, we have someone from Landmark College, which is known for helping students get through college. Those students who have a learning disability, who might be on the autism spectrum, and really more special needs. And they unfortunately didn't have a lot of time that they could come to speak, but they could come for the guidance discussion group in March. So that is going to be the focus of our next discussion group. I will send out information. I think it would be invaluable. Certainly it will be recorded if anybody can't make it. But thank you, and
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.